Hi students, welcome back in English grammar class. Today I am having here with a new topic, that is active passive voices. You must have heard these words in English grammar before. Let's have a look at it. Let's discuss it in more detail. Words and voice. First we will discuss what is voice. Voice is the form of a verb takes to indicate whether the subject of the word performs or receives the action. Voice just shows us that whether subject is a performer of an action or it is just receiving the action. There are two types of voices, active voice and passive voice. Active voice indicates that the subject of the verb is acting. In active voice, the subject is active in a sentence, and the subject is the main performer of an action, and it is the main focus of the sentence. As you can see, because the subject does or acts upon the verb in such sentence, the sentence are said to be in the active voice. Obviously, when subject is active in a sentence, so you would call it active voice. These examples shows that the subject is doing the verb's actions. As you can see, the dog jumped onto the boy. So here you can see the dog, subject is the doer of an action or performer of an action. The dog, that is subject, is doing the jumping. In the above sentence you can see the dog jumped onto the boy. So here the main focus is on the dog, that the dog, what does the dog did? The dog jumped onto the boy. So here the dog is subject and is doing the jumping. The dog is performing an action, so subject is active in this sentence and it is a performer of an action. Christy will give a book report to the class. So here again you can see Christy is the subject here, and she, what would be she doing? Is doing the giving of class report to the class. So book report to the class. So here you can see again Christy is the main focus and the main important object of this sentence. The computer ate my paper. So here you can see the computer, subject, is doing the eating. So here you can see the main focus is on the computer, which is the subject. So such type of sentences in which the main focus is on subject, or the subject is the performer of an action, or it is the active in a sentence, so we would call it active voice sentence. Then we are having passive voice. In a passive voice sentence, the subject and object flip-flop. Simply the subject and object replace their positions. The subject becomes the passive recipient of the action, and here the subject just receives the action. They are not that much active in a sentence. They are not the performer of an action. They become the receiver of the action, and it changes the place of object. It interchanges the place of object with it. Because the subject is being acted upon or is passive, such sentences are said to be in the passive voice. The subject is passive in these sentences, that's why we call it passive voice. As you can see in these examples show the subject being acted upon by the verb. The boy was jumped on by the dog. So here you can see the boy was jumped on by the dog. Here the dog is not that much important. The main focus is on the boy. So boy, subject, was being jumped on, verb. So here you can see the object just interchange the place with the subject. There the dog was subject and here it is object, and there the boy was subject and here it is object. So the boy just received the action. A book report will be given by Christy to the class. Here the main focus is on a book report, which is subject, which will be given by Christy. So here we have no concern with that who would give the book report. The main focus is on that a book report will be given. My paper was eaten by the computer. Paper is the main focus or the main subject in this sentence. So all such type of sentences are in passive voice, where the subject is the receiver of an action, or it is passive in a sentence. Now here we are discussing the reasons to use the active voice, that why do we use active voice. Most writers prefer to use active voice because it is more direct. Active voice is a more direct way to convey our message, that's why we use active voice, and most writers also use active voice because it is easily understandable, it is more clear to the reader. As you can see, here is a comparison. The waiter dropped the tray of food. It's just simple. The waiter dropped the tray of food. Its meaning is easily clear to us. The tray of food was dropped by the waiter. So here it seems a little bit complicated. So that's why the writers prefer to use active voice. The active voice is less awkward and clearly states relationship between subject and action. Active voice, as we have already discussed, it seems less awkward, like it is easily understandable, and it clearly shows us the relationship between subject and the action, that the subject is performer of an action and the action is being performed by the subject. So it clearly shows us the relation, as you can see in examples. First we are having example of passive voice. Your request for funding has been denied by the review committee. So here you can see that your request for funding has been denied by the review committee. It seems a little bit more complicated, and it's the clear one, active. The review committee denied your request for funding. So it's a straightforward sentence. That's why we mainly use active voice. The active voice statement pattern profiles the reader forward through your writing, thus avoid weak prose. It makes us as you know that we are having a simple basic structure of a sentence, that is subject, verb and object. This is the basic structure of a sentence: subject plus verb plus object. So as in active voice this structure is followed. That's why they are saying that it's easily understandable to the readers. When to use passive voice. Now we are discussing here that when we have to use passive voice. In general, the passive voice is less direct. It is less direct. It means that the meaning would not be clear directly, less forceful. They didn't focus on subject that much, and less concise. Concise mean up to the point, short. So they are not that much short. Active sentences are shorter, while passive sentences are a bit longer. Then the active voice. Use the passive voice in the following situation, but as we are having some situations in which we have must to use passive voice. Use passive voice when you do not know or do not want to reveal the performer of an action. Like let's suppose if you don't want to reveal the performer of an action, then you would use passive voice. As an example, if I told you that if someone has broken, let's suppose if you have broken a glass in the kitchen and you just told your mom that a glass was broken, and you didn't want to show the performer that who has done it, obviously then you would be scolded. That's why you just say that a glass has been broken. So that would be in passive voice. You don't want to show the performer of that action. Use passive voice when you want to emphasize the receiver of an action, and if you want to focus mainly on the receiver of the action, then you can also use passive voice for it. Let's suppose if someone asks you that who beat Sarah, let's suppose, and your answer would be that Sarah was beaten by, and the emphasis would be that Sarah was beaten. Emphasis would be on this, not on this that whoever or whoever have been beaten by. So whenever the receiver of the action or the object is on the main focus in a sentence, so we would use passive voice for it. Or whenever the performer of an action is unknown to us and or we didn't want to reveal it, so we would use passive voice for it. Here we are having two other examples of active and passive voice sentences. Look at the first, that is in passive voice: the cookies were eaten by the children. The children ate the cookies. The tunnels are dug by the gophers. The gophers dug the tunnels. So here you can see the difference between active and passive voice, that how the performer of an action or the subject is active in active sentences and how they are passive in passive sentences. This was a little bit introduction of active and passive voices. In our next class we will discuss it in more detail.